If you're not listening to the Smoke World podcast, you're wasting your time, you mortal.
What's up, folks? Welcome to another episode of Smoke World. I'm your host, Stone. So go grab your stick, go grab a glass, whatever you're drinking. Let's sit back and have a conversation. You can follow me on Instagram at SmokeWorld50. And I tell you this, folks, every time. Send those emails to SmokeWorld50@gmail.com. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing one of my buddies, my brother, The Leaf, entrepreneur. He just released a book entitled Destination Success, 8 Mindsets for Hacks for Every Entrepreneur. Brother Sherm is in the building. Sherm, what's up, my brother?
What's up, Stone? Smoke it up, baby.
How you feeling, brother? Okay, let's start right here. I mean, before we get started, I always do this. Get a little pedigree on the folks I'm talking to. Give us, where you from, bro?
Born and raised Delaware all my life, 49 years. I've been doing small business since 1998 when I got out of the Navy. I originally opened a cleaning service and then got back into the hotel restaurant industry, managing a restaurant for a small guy. It was like a little corner bar, and then started the catering company, and that was 13 years ago.
Oh, wow, okay. You're in the Navy. Thank you for your service, sir. Appreciate that. Sorry to hear you. I see here.
Go Navy!
Okay, so you're Delawarean. All right, now you wrote a book. Now you didn't mention, which I maybe didn't mention, the catering. You got 50 jobs. He's a true Jamaican. He has 20 jobs. So we're going to kind of start from square one. You say you had a cleaning business.
Yeah.
Okay, give us a little detail on that, because this book is about entrepreneurship.
Sure.
And, it's not an easy thing. There's pros and cons to this whole thing. At the end of the day, folks may say, oh, man, this guy's killing it. But they don't know what goes on behind the scenes, the work that it takes to get to where you're at. So give us a little history on that road trip for us.
So really, I was in the Navy, and one of the guys I was in the Navy with had a small cleaning business with his wife and his cousin. And when I was getting out, I was looking for something to do. Like, I wasn't getting a job, and I wanted to open up my own business. And he was making about $50,000 a year doing it part-time with Janet King. He had a little Janet King franchise down in Norfolk. So I looked into it, and I came home, and I was looking to open it up, and instead of paying the money for Janet King, I just kind of like went and I bought my own buckets and mops and started doing some flyers, running up and down 13 Route 1 in the city, all that kind of stuff, and it took me about 2 weeks, and I landed one of my customers for the restaurant when I was working in a restaurant before I went in the Navy, at a salon. It was Michael Christopher's hair salon, and then right after that I got Ursuline Academy, and I was cleaning the school between the two. So I started off pretty big, pretty quick, but it was just because of my network of people that I had prior. So these people already knew me. They knew my work ethic. They knew that I would, a man of my word, and I would do what I said I did. So, that I had that for like 15 years, and that was tough, man. That was tough business. Cleaning is a really tough thing because, clean, the word clean is really, it's a definition of a person. Clean is different for everybody.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So like, we had people hiding Cheerios under desks and next to tables, stuff like that, and then you gotta worry, then you gotta worry about theft and all kinds of other things. It was just rough, and my mindset back then, I was just in a little different mindset. I was still militant from the military. I'm actually third generation Navy. So my grandfather was in World War II. My dad was in Vietnam, and then I wasn't in a war, but I joined later. So I had a very militant background, and it was really tough for me to assimilate to my staff because I was always told, do it right, do it the first time, don't do it again, kind of thing. And that's not really how 99% of the population has been trained. So it was really tough for me to communicate back and forth. So how I got out of that is I was going through my second divorce, and I was in real estate and doing some other things, and it was just I was just like angry, and I was not happy. I was making a ton of money, but I just wasn't happy with what I was doing. And there was a bartender that was working at this little corner bar, and she asked me for some recipes, and the owner wound up eating a couple of my recipes that I gave her. They were crock pot recipes. So she was just serving it so guys would come in for lunch because they didn't have a kitchen yet. So Long story forward on that is that, he asked me to come in, and I said no a few times, and then I swung in. We drank a whole bottle of vodka, and next thing you know, I said yes.
Alcohol involved.
So, there's always the story of how you got there, and nine out of 10 times, my story starts with vodka and cigars.
Okay, now, interestingly, you kind of skipped over a little bit. Now, how did you get into cooking? Like, were you skilled? I mean, was it something that you learned at home? Because you kind of skipped over that bam, and all of a sudden folks are looking for your food.
Yeah.
Well, how did that happen? You kind of skipped that. Maybe we got a little time to break it down for us.
No, so I've always loved food. And that's a kind of ironic story as well, is because my dad used to get drunk on the barbecue and burn the shit out of everything. So how I really came about food, because I couldn't stand anything he ever cooked. But it was one of those things. Like, I always liked entertaining. I always liked, I would start and I would create I always liked to create like a new sandwich. Back when we were in high school and middle school, they had that brand new panini press that you could buy. There was like a little, so we would put all kinds of shit in there, make sandwiches, and we'd always like, hey, what's the best one we made so far? And I'd always have like 8 or 10 guys come home from school. We'd come to my house and have lunch.
Okay.
Then be late to the 6th period class, and we'd all be in detention together. We'd talking about our lunch and our sandwiches we were making and all kind of stuff. And then Then I actually started working at the farmer's market when I was in college. So my grandfather owned a construction company. So that was supposed to be my legacy. I was supposed to be that was. So my grandfather did it. My the third uncle took it over, and then I was the grandson that was interested in construction. So I was really supposed to be the third legacy, the third generation that actually start doing it. And I did it for a year. I tried it.
So when you
it was too hot in the summer and too cold in the winter, and I was like, "This shit ain't for me." So I did that for a year. I was full time with my uncle in the construction company for a year, and then I quit and I went back to school, and I had no idea, like zero, what I wanted to do. So I was just going to school and working at the farmer's market. There was a furniture store in there, and my buddy worked at the record store, and he said, hey, this guy's hired for the weekend. So it worked out perfectly, because I go to school during the week and work on the weekends, make some money, and just pick up stuff, put stuff down. There was no skill involved. It was just, pick the couch up, put it in the pickup truck. Okay, great. I didn't have to think about nothing. I didn't sell anything. I wasn't talking to customers except for, here's your slip, here's what you need out there, that kind of thing. It was real simple and easy, and that's really what I wanted. Okay. Just to make a little bit of money so I could get through school, figure out what I wanted to do. And every Saturday I would sit right next to the furniture store was a seafood place, and I would go over there and have lunch. And believe it or not, being in Delaware, you'd think I was really, my palate in seafood would have been huge, but it wasn't. I knew crab cakes, shrimp, and flounder, and that's pretty much all I knew. Because that's what my my parents and my grandfather used to fish for flounder all the time, and that kind of thing. So they were the seafoods we ate. I didn't know much of a lot of things, so I would go down and I would just put my finger on an item on the menu, and I go, all right, I'm going to try this for lunch today. And I would go through the menu a little bit, and one of the two brothers that owned the place, Mark and Sid, saw me, and he saw me hustling over there, and they were getting ready to expand their restaurant. Okay. It was just a little spot, and then they moved down to the new part of the farmers market when they had expanded all the way down closer to where the flea market is, and they had a huge restaurant. It had I think 60 seats in it. Originally they only had 12, and this went to 60 or 70 seats.
Okay.
So he one weekend he's like, hey, we're looking to hire some people, and I think you'd be great for this job. And I was like, dude, I know nothing about food except for eating it. As he's giggling like you're giggling, he goes, well, at least you're honest about it. I go, look, I can make some good sandwiches. I know how to do it, but I don't know how to do anything else before that. He's like, don't worry about it, I'll teach you. And I was like, I don't know, man. I don't really, I really didn't want anything that was not necessarily thinking involved. I just wanted to come to work and do my thing and go. I didn't want to be any moving parts.
Nothing demanding.
Yeah. So his niece was there, and I think she was 14, and she was waiting on the tables. So 2 or 3 times he kept putting the pressure on me. So the third time he calls his niece over and he goes, tell him how much you make on a weekend. And at this time now we're talking, this is 91. So she was like, oh, I make $350, $400. And I'm like, what?
Whoa.
Because, I was getting $10 an hour for 25, 30 hours, picking shit up and putting shit down. And I'm like, she's 14 years old waiting on tables, and she's making $300. I was like, I can make more. I mean, there's no way. I'm just looking at it like, it had nothing to do with anything other than she was just younger than me.
Right.
And I was like, I could hustle more than that. I mean, I know that I can out hustle. So I was like, all right, man, I'm gonna give it a shot.
Okay.
You know, I'm gonna give it a try. You said, and it's all on you because I told you I don't know shit about this.
Right.
So if I'm not good at it, I don't hear any bullshit from you. Like I already told you. So he's like, no, I got you, man. I can't teach what you have. Mm-hmm. And he was like, you know, you're a great hustler. You're really smart. You know, and you have a good personality, and I can't teach that. I can teach you how to cook. I can teach you how to serve. I can teach you how to ring things up, but I can't teach that other stuff. And you have it. And I was like, all right. So he's like, the funniest of this story is that I was like, well, look, I got to give 2 weeks notice. It's just who I am. And he goes, yeah, as soon as you tell him you're coming to work for me, he's going to fire you. And I said, well, look, if that's what he does, that's his business.
Right.
But I'm giving him 2 weeks notice. So Sunday after my shift, I walked up to the guy and I said, hey, look, I'm going to try out this other opportunity. You guys have been great. I really appreciate everything you've done for me. I'm giving you 2 weeks notice. You know, and then I'm going to try this other thing out. And I obviously to his knowledge that he gave me, I didn't really want to tell him where I was going because I didn't want it to be hard feelings.
Right.
Because there was no hard feelings.
Not at all.
But between the two of them, there were. So he's like, and of course I'm not a liar either. So he's like, so you mind asking me, where you're going? And I was like, well, kind of. And he goes, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, I was told if I tell you where I'm going, you're going to fire me right now. And I don't really want that to be the end of this relationship. You have been really good to me.
Right.
You gave me a job. I worked really hard for you. Whatever you wanted, I did it. And I just don't want us to end on bad terms. In case this doesn't work out, I'd like to come back, if you needed somebody.
Keep
keep the door open. He's like, you're going to Alex's, aren't you? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, you're right. And he was like, fuck that guy. You're fucking fired too. And I was like, wow, man, seriously?
So he really did that?
He really knows you. And he goes, that son of a bitch, he's always stealing my goddamn employees. And I go, he didn't steal your employee. I just looking for. This is part time, man. And he's like, I don't get. And he started, going on a rant. Apparently, there's some bad blood between these two guys.
So. You think?
But yeah, I was only 18 or 19. Dude, what the hell I know?
You still remember that, though?
So yeah, I remember it. I remember like it was yesterday. But I don't have any hard feelings. I did the right thing.
Right.
He made the decision as an owner that he had to make, and that's fine.
So
that's
really fired you that day.
Yeah, he really said, okay, well, today's your last day, and I'm like, okay. No problem.
Damn.
So then I went back the next weekend, and I'm on Friday now. I'm at the counter, and he goes, he fired you, didn't you? And I go, why wasn't I sitting there? He goes, all right. Well, we could start it next week. You could just start next week during the week, if you want to. And I'm like, all right. Well, I'll give you a call. So, long story short, is I was there for about 2 years.
Okay.
And I did everything. I helped them. I started out obviously waiting tables, and then I started. I helped them on the front counter selling retail out of the front counter, and then I would help them bread and make all their sauce, all their soups and kinds of stuff like that. I didn't really cook too much there, because they had a really good crew at the time back then. So, but I would help out. Like I would chop stuff up. I would prep for them when they needed stuff. But then I started college, and then when I did that, I was like, man, I really love this. So let me look at the degree. What degree can I get while I'm doing this? So I switched to HRM, which is Hotel Restaurant Management degree at Del Tech. And when I was there in the cafeteria, this other guy comes out, and a real tall dude, and always kind of like a sharp dresser when we were there. I was a clown. I always had jeans on and a T-shirt or something, and I always had money, but I was a clown. And I know it's tough to believe, but. He comes up to me and he goes, I was like, I heard you're a server, and I'm like, yeah. He goes, I was like, I serve at the farmer's market, and he started laughing. He goes, he's over there with all them fleas, huh? And I was like, yeah, dude, I make some pretty good money over there. I was like, I make about $500 in a weekend. He goes, well, that's funny because I make $1,000 working 4 shifts, and I was like, what? I was like, huh? So he's like, yeah. He goes, in the place I'm working at is looking for servers. And I was like, he's like, but I don't know if they're going to hire you because normally it's like there's this attrition of you have to have certain things on your resume to get into these higher end places. And this at the time was like a 4-star Italian restaurant. So there was normally like a different type of route you would take.
Okay.
But we're gonna fast forward it. I went from the shit house to the penthouse. There was no route I took. I just went in and interviewed. So I interviewed, and there is a husband and a wife, and the wife was a professional ballroom dancer, and their silent partner was the guy that owned the ballroom dancing, the old Crystal Ballroom on Philadelphia Pike. So we're sitting there interviewing, and she took a liking to me, and he didn't like the fact that I wasn't polished. Like I hadn't done the normal gauntlet, and it was funny. We got all through it, and I was like, look, I really appreciate your time. I get it. I'm not your traditional, come from here to Inn. I didn't go work at Columbus Inn. I didn't work at Positano's. I didn't work down at the Wiss. I didn't do all the normal things to get here. I said, but here's what I'm going to tell you. You hire me, and I swear that I will outwork every single person that you have working here. I said, by 6 months into it, I'll be running this joint. And he looked at me and he goes, wow, you're pretty confident. I said, I'm not confident. I said, you call my boss where I'm working right now. I had zero experience in the restaurant business. And I promise you, because I told him I'm coming on this interview, and I'm honest with everybody. Like, I didn't want to just leave him hanging, because I am a pretty integral part of what he does, because I'm really strong at what I do. And I can take a lot of tables and do a lot of things. I said, but I'm doing this because it's less work, and I'm going to make a little more money. And that's what I'm looking to do, is just try to bring the amount of time that I work in a week down, plus going to school full time. So I'm trying to get the best ROI on my time. And and I didn't say that back then because I didn't really know much about ROI. But I'm telling you it now, as an experienced person. And he goes, you know what? I'm going to hire you just because I'm going to make sure you don't do that. You're not going to succeed. And I was like, I'm up for it, brother. I mean, I was like, bring it on. I was like, you cannot be any worse than my father. I was like, so you bring it on. So he's like, all right. I said, and again, I got to give these guys 2 weeks notice. So, it's going to be 2 weeks before I can start. They are not going to let me go. Like, they're not firing me.
Right.
Like, they need me. I'm going to make sure they're going to hire somebody. I'm going to train my replacement. I'm going to make sure they're ready to go before I leave. I said, and then after that, I'll be here. And if I can come here early, great. If I can't, I will be here on the 2 weeks, and I might be working down there still to make sure that that I don't leave them, any worse than I came. And he goes, well, I respect that. I said, well, that's how I'm always going to be. I'm not going to leave you without giving you proper time and notice to find somebody. So I start there, and needless to say, it was a rough transition, but that's how I got the nickname Sherm. So
really,
yeah, because they would go back there, and so I was really like one of the youngest people that worked there. So I was 19/20 at the time, and they all these guys were all old salt dogs, man. They had been doing this for 20 years. Like the maitre d' had been in the restaurant industry for 20 years, and the chef, he had been. So basically these guys hop around to get the next position or the next job or the next amount of money.
Level.
Yeah. Where they're actually, running their own place kind of thing, even though it's not theirs, but it's their kitchen. They have full reign on what they can do and that kind of stuff. So this guy, man, and the two of them they just drank, and they drank all the time. You know what I mean? It was
working.
Well, yeah.
Stitches get stitches.
Yeah. I would just say by the end of the shift that things got exciting. So in the midst of the shift, so they're back there, and I'm watching it. Like when we're slow, we only have one or two tables. I can come back, so I'm sitting in the kitchen, and I'm watching them saute, I'm watching them prepare, and I'm watching them do all this stuff. And then I would go home and try it. I would try to do it. You know what I mean? Like try to see if I could figure it out. You know what I mean? So I would ask a ton of questions. Nonstop. What the one chef, man, when he at the end, closer to the shift, where he'd get irritated because he'd have maybe one too many Russian ladies, we'll say. He'd get real irritated, and because I'm asking a lot of questions.
Right.
Like, you should be asking me all these questions. You shut up and serve the food.
Yeah, you just ain't your job.
Just shut up and serve the food.
Stay in your lane.
Yeah, stay in your lane. Got it. So I put up the ticket, and I was like, order and ding, and that's what we did. And he's like, all right, Sherman, and I was like, whatever, and I kept. So my real given name is Michael. So I've always had a nickname,
Gotcha.
Because I was one of those kids. You know what I mean? Like always charismatic, always a fool, always doing something stupid. They gave me a nickname. You know what I mean?
So
there was other people that were Michael,
origination of
and
that name,
then I. So we're getting through it.
Okay.
So about a month goes by, and one of the servers like, dude, don't you want to know why they call you Sherman? I said, let me tell you my story. I came from the farmer's market. I'm making $1,000 a week in cash working here, right? You think he could call me Dumbo for all I care? I don't give a damn what he calls me as long as I keep making this money, because this is the most money I've ever made, and I'm able to go to school, have a day. I have Sunday off.
Okay.
So I have a little bit of a weekend, and then I get a day or two in a week where I have off and I don't have to worry about it after school. So I'm really getting the best of everything right now. I said, I don't give a damn what he calls me. As long as he puts my food out and I get them tips, I don't give a damn. So we're sitting there and we're folding napkins before the shift, and he goes, yo, man, he's calling you Sherman from Sherman and Peabody. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
So now that cartoon was right at the cusp of me. Like it was, like it kind of was running out as I was a kid.
Right.
So I knew it, but I didn't really know it.
Right.
So my question to him was, is that the dog or the kid? That's all I wanted to know. And he goes, no, Sherman's the kid. I go, okay, I'm good then.
I can work with that.
I can work with that.
No problem with that.
So it went the full gamut. Like I was like Bo Sherm. I was all this stuff. This is the '90s now. So you had all kinds of things. So then it just got shortened into Sherm, and that's kind of how it stuck. So then obviously I fast forward, I joined in. Things were really crazy. I was burning the candle at 9 ends, not both ends, 9 ends. I had lighters and candles burning everywhere. But, I was just running hard. I was young. My son was 2 or 3, almost 4 years old at this point, and I looked and contemplated. I'm going nowhere fast. I was like, and I looked up and I looked at all these guys that this is all they did, man. They waited on tables.
Right.
They made really good money, and then they drank. And they just drank themselves to death all night. Some of them did drugs, some of them did alcohol, whatever it was. And I was like, is this really what I want to do for my kid? You know what I mean? Like, it's bad enough that I'm a single father. We split time between his mom and I. We were both, took care of our kids. Yeah, but I mean, it's like, I have this kid, and this is really the example I want to be setting for him. You know what I mean? So that's when I decided to join the Navy. And then all I did was drink even more in the Navy. I went from the frying pan to the fryer. We were professional drinkers. That shit pulls in at 7 in the morning, you're drinking. You're at a bar. It's not like after a shift. It's not 8 or 9 o'clock like the rest of us. This is like, we pull in at 7 in the morning, you're drinking by 7:45. So and then that's when I married my youngest son's mother, and we had all that stuff, and I had a full family unit and that kind of things, and it was just that's kind of like the transition. Then I got out, and I really didn't want to get back into the restaurant. It was just hard. It's hard work. Being in a restaurant, it's 7 days a week. It's 18 hours a day. It was just really hard, and that's why. So that's why I transitioned and moved towards the cleaning business, because it's not that it's not hard work, but it's just you're not dealing with alcohol. You're not dealing with drunk people all the time. You're not dealing with that kind of stuff. Like you go to work, you do that kind of job, and then you can come home and separate from it.
Gotcha.
You're not at the bar where now 4 or 5 people that you waited on now buy you a shot. The next it's 3 in the morning because now you're drinking with them.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, so that's cleaning's not a hazard. You know what I mean? There's no hazard really to the duty. Because
now
we're cleaning and now but yeah. So that's kind of how I didn't transition right back into the food, and that's kind of the background of what I did, but. It just, the food bug it's in you. You know what I mean? Like, it's like anything else. Like, it was, the food bug was in me, and as soon as I started doing it, it was just natural for me to get back. And then a lot of the industry heard that I was doing it, and it just helped. I got a couple doors open because they knew who I was doing it back in the 90s. Now I'm doing it in the early thousands,
right.
And, it just one thing led to another, and I got some really good opportunities. So, that's kind of how it worked. But
did you ever have a restaurant, or was it just
no?
Okay. So people just knew you cooked good food.
Yeah, and then I just marketed. I was already branded, which was the best part. I didn't have to come up with a name, a fictitious name, of a restaurant, that kind of thing. So I had Sherm's. I just Sherm's Catering is natural. Like, it is what it is. Everybody knew me as Sherm in that industry, so it was easy to go right back to being Sherm. From Michael Porter. So
now, out of curiosity, remember your first big gig as a caterer? Now you're doing this, and you're thinking oh man, somebody calls you and say, hey, guess what, Sherm? We got a wedding, we got a class reunion.
No, so the first big gig was my ex-wife and her. So when I was still in the real estate and cleaning business, my ex-wife wanted to be a wedding planner. So I sent her to school to get her credentials, and I helped her out, and I gave her some. Most of my friends were still in the business, so I gave her some contacts to get into like some of the hotels that did weddings, so that she could get referrals when they needed a wedding planner. So her first client was a young couple, and they were from. They both had divorced parents, and it was a really crazy situation with money. And so they would come to the house and they would be talking about things, and they were really trying to have like a traditional wedding, but they couldn't afford it.
Gotcha.
You know, the budget was limited because they had to pay for most of it. Their parents were helping a little bit, but it was kind of like a tug of war about who was going to pay for what and how much they were going to pay. And you know, they weren't trying to one up; they were trying to one down each other.
Okay, gotcha.
You know what I mean, kind of thing. So. Long story short is I would always put out some food, you know, when they came, and I would sit and help her with like my end of the questions because I really knew a lot about the you know, the restaurant part of it, the catering part. You know, I had worked for Harry, so we used to do banquets upstairs. So I was really, you know, well versed. Yeah, so I could help her through some questions when they had questions about things that she didn't learn about being a wedding planner. So I would sit there and and so I was in the kitchen the one time and I heard them whispering. And I walked out and go, I'm not catering your wedding. And they're like, you heard us? And I was like, I heard all of it. And I was like, I'm extremely honored that you love my food. I was like, but I haven't done this in almost 15 years. I said, and I don't want to come back and ruin your wedding. You know, what I mean, that's not how I want to start.
Right.
Like, if I'm going to get back into this, I'd like to step into it versus doing a wedding. Well, not only did I do their wedding, I did their rehearsal dinner the night before in their parents' house. So I had 2 days of excruciating prepping food. It was at the mill behind Troop 6 on Kirkwood Highway. There's that little mill right there. So we went out, we did the walkthrough. The kitchen had an oven and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, all right. And we had it all set up and planned. And I was using my home personal oven to do everything.
Now, did you have help? Or you
I did. So
okay.
So a couple, two of the girls that work for me in my cleaning business used to work for like little sandwich shops, like in the Chase building. They had that little commissary.
Yep.
So they had some experience with it, and then they had a couple of their kids and some friends that had served before. So I grabbed all that. So we're all doing this. You know, we're all like haphazardly doing all this. So so everything pretty much runs without any kind of. There was one little hiccup the night before on the rehearsal dinner, and I was like, "Wow, I think I got this." You know what I mean? All right.
I can do this.
So yeah, I think we're actually going to do this. There's probably going to be no issues. So we get there the day of, and I'm taking all the bar supplies for the bartender that was there, and then I got all my stuff up, and we got it all set up, and I'm like, we're like halfway there already. So we get there for drop off the first food, and there's no oven in the kitchen.
Whoa.
They had a fire at the mill, and their insurance company made them take the oven out of the kitchen.
Okay, this is going to get good.
Now you think that that maybe somebody
told you
would
that.
mention that? I mean, it's just a minor detail. I mean, you know, there's no more oven in the kitchen. So I'm getting ready to put all this food in to finish off.
Right.
And I'm like, where's the... So this guy, man, he must have been 65. He was like the guy on site, for the mill.
Right.
He comes out and I'm like, hey, come here. And he's like, all right. He comes in the kitchen. I go, where's the oven? And he goes, oh, we took that out like 5 months ago. Wow. And I'm like, what? I was here for a walkthrough. The oven was here. He's like, yeah, well, we had a fire, and the insurance company told us we had to take the oven out. And I was like, and you guys didn't mention mention that to anybody? Like maybe call and tell somebody that kind of stuff? He goes, well, I don't know about that stuff, man. I go, so at this point, my blood pressure started getting kind of high.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he basically ran into his office, locked the door. We didn't see him the rest of the night.
I'm pretty sure you did.
So I called that the Kirkwood Highway wedding because all I did was I had all the servers there.
Right.
So we had food ready to go, and then I had other food to put in to finish off because you stage it basically.
Gotcha.
When you're going to cook on site, you have some food ready to go right off the bat, and then you have other food. It's like you're cooking from beginning to end, and then there's some that only needs like maybe an hour. So you just keep stepping the food in so that it's done and it's fresh right there and that. So basically, what I did is I had to take all the food that wasn't cooked back to my kitchen. Start cooking it, and then I would cook it until it was ready to go, and then I would drive it to the mill and go back. So I lived on 8th Street.
I was about to say,
I lived on 8th Street, right next to the West End. So I would go, back and forth. So they didn't see me all night. So I get done with the dinner service. Everybody is raving about the food, raving about the service. Meanwhile, my feet are like on fire. They are like burning. So I'm sitting on there's a little stone wall that's right out in front, and I'm sitting there and I have my feet out and I'm drinking a vodka and cranberry, and I'm like, and then Brian Crew would come up to me and give me this big hug. She starts crying, and I'm like, is everything good? She's like, oh my God, it's way better than we ever expected it to be. You did a great and amazing job. She goes, but it looks like there's something wrong. And I said, here's what I'm going to tell you. You go enjoy your honeymoon, and when you get back, we'll tell you about all the stories. And she goes, what? I'm like, don't worry about it right now. All that matters is you and your guests are all happy.
Right.
That's what matters. I told you I didn't want to ruin your wedding, and we didn't ruin your wedding. So I'm good. Everything's great. We'll figure it out next time, but we're good now. So that was my first ever wedding in 2008.
That's like a nightmare.
It was,
basically.
yeah.
But you pulled it off.
But you know, because I love misery so much, I didn't say, you know what, maybe this is a sign.
Just maybe
I didn't. So 3 months later, I dove in even deeper. So everybody, like, this is a lesson about being a business owner, is that you're always throwing curves. Like, you have to understand that nothing is always going to go as planned, or nothing is ever going to be perfect. And you have to learn to work on your feet, learn to understand you can't get crazy. Like, you know, I could have just thrown a fit and be like, fuck it, it's done.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I ain't doing this shit. Fuck you. It's over.
They ain't tell me the other was.
Yeah, that's not my fault.
It's not my bad.
But I just worked it out. You know, I worked it out. I made it work for them. I made it work for their customers, and I made it work for me. So it wasn't the most optimal experience for my first experience, but it taught me a lot of lessons right out the gate. Like, you know, you have to make sure you have a backup plan. Yeah. You have to make sure that you have a backup plan for the backup plan, just in case, because things happen. So that's, you know, that's a huge lesson, you know, to be learned right in the beginning. But yeah, and then I got the contract for the Newcastle County Government Center, and I was running their cafeteria up there. And then from there, the city of Wilmington interviewed me at the Newcastle County Government Center. They came in and had lunch. I always thought, I'm like, is there cameras around? Like,
am I getting punked every time?
Yeah, is this going to be on a TV show that I don't know about?
Every time somebody's pulling me from another location.
Yeah. So it was.
So how many years has it been now that you've been doing?
13. It's 13.
Oh, wow, that's what's up, fella.
I'll start my 14th year in June. So, you know, it's good, and I wouldn't have it any other way. It's taught me a lot. You know, you learn how to, with staff and coaching staff and employees, and setting up, rules. Like my contract. I mean, and what I was charging back then was ridiculously like nobody could ever get prices like that I was giving. But I had different situations where my costs were different, and weddings in the beginning were just side jobs. They weren't really the bulk of our business, so I was able to, all I had really to do was hire servers. I already had the kitchen stuff done, and I would go out and I would be the kitchen person that did all the kitchen things, and then I just needed servers to serve and clear and set up and that kind of thing. So, now it's different. I have a VP of operations. She runs the business every day. I got a kitchen manager, and we got 8 people in the kitchen full time. We got anywhere from 5 to 25 servers given the events, kind of thing. So you just learn to evolve. You learn to create your systems. You learn to do all that stuff. And like you said, when you started out, that everybody thinks that this, like, Sherm's just, he's just successful. Well, yeah.
Don't know the backstory.
You don't know. So there's a picture that you guys can Google, and it says success, and it's an iceberg. And you see the little tip at the top of the iceberg, and then you see the bottom part of the iceberg. Mm-hmm. And that's all the work. That's all the problems. Right. That's all the lessons you learned. And then what happens is once it floats up and everybody sees just the top, like, you're successful. Yeah. I'm like, I am. I am successful.
No idea what I had to go through to get to this point.
And it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you want to, start a car detailing, or if it's going to be a cleaning service, or you're going to be a carpenter or a plumber, or you're going to buy a franchise. You still got to learn.
Yes.
You still got to learn all that stuff. And buying a franchise is no joke, man, because they don't veer. You gotta do their book. It's like being an employee, because you got to do it their way,
right?
Because that's how it is. That's what you're buying. You're buying the system of what's success. And sometimes that's good for people. In the beginning, it wasn't good for me. Like, I didn't want somebody telling me what to do. But then I learned a lot of hard lessons. A lot of life hard lessons I learned by not following somebody else's successful system.
Well, okay, that dives into, now we're going to touch bases again. Congratulations on the book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Destination Success. What inspired you to write this book?
So probably for the past 5 or 6 years, I've been between my inner workings with the chamber and my community, helping I've been over and spoke at the Horn program at the University of Delaware, which is their entrepreneur program. The Newcastle County Chamber, I've been a huge active member there for probably almost 12 years now. I'm on the board of directors, and I've been helping people. Like, they always come to me because they see how hard I work and they see how successful I am, which equals to them, this is probably the guy I should talk to. So I've been helping a lot of people, with whatever their situation was at the time. Like, hey, did you think about doing this? Or how about doing that? And it dawned on me, like, hey, there's a lot of successful people out there that sell this information, and help people by coaching them and mentor them. And I was like, and I had mentored quite a few people, in a limited capacity, with what they were doing. And when they had problems, they would call me and I would help them. But I figured, what? If I'm going to start really doing this coaching thing as a profession, I really need to have some credentials and have some things behind me to say, hey, this is a guy I should talk to. So about 8 years ago, I hired a national small business coach, and he really wanted me to write a book and get on stage and speak because he liked my story too. Like, everybody loves my story because it's not the traditional, like, I opened up the doors and everything was great. Like, there was a lot of things you hit.
A lot of lessons learned.
And he said that would sell, and it would sell great. So just recently with my new coach, I had been telling him, hey, I'd really been trying to do this book, and my other buddy Kareem, Kareem Williams, up at Cigar, he had written his book about 3 years ago, and I told him the same thing. I'm like, man, I really think that I should do this, but I'm just so English to me and grammar and all that kind of stuff is like English is a third language for me. You know what I mean? Like,
for most of us, I think.
Well,
let's keep it real.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm like, I barely got through high school in English, and I struggled in college with English, and I'm like, and now my dumb ass is going to write a book. I was like, isn't that some shit right there?
It's the lamest book.
So I guess it was a little bit of fear, and it was a little bit of knowing that I'm not successful in that area that kind of held me back for the longest time. And then Kareem got me started, and he's like, look, just go with an outline. So I paid him to be my coach to write my book, help me write my book. And we got started with the outline, and I just fumbled a lot, man. I would get on that computer, and I would freeze. Like, I had all this stuff in my head, and I just couldn't get it on the computer. I couldn't get it out. And, like, I'd be in the shower, and I'd have all these ideas, and I'm like, where's the microphone? Where can I read? So about 9 months ago, Mike Warmer and I started a podcast, and we started just having a conversation like you and I are about, help, he would just, ask me some questions about things and business and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, so like 5 or 6 into it, I go, this is it. Like, this is how I'm going to write this book. I'm going to take the information because I can free flow this stuff all day. I can sit here and talk to people about business, systems, strategy, coaching, leadership, all that all day. I can speak about it all day.
Right.
But when you get to putting it into the pen in my hand and put it on the paper, there's some kind of disconnect, like somebody chopped my arm off. You know what I mean? Like, it's like all of a sudden, like, duh. Like some people when they get on stage and you put a microphone on front of them and they freeze. They're the best singer you've ever met in their entire life. But when they stand on that stage and look out and see all them people and see that little black thing sitting there going, you know what I mean? Like, so.
Are you looking for a new platform to connect with other cigar smokers, consumers, lounges, and brands while escaping tobacco-related rules of other social media platforms? Then look no further. Stogie Lives, the new social media platform for cigar lovers created by a female. So come join Stogie Lives, STOGIELIVES.com, where every cigar lover has a place to connect.
I said, this is how I'm going to do it. So we took the podcast. I got his permission because, both of us are doing it together. I said, hey, look, this is what I want to do. Let's keep talking about these things, and I'm going to take this information. And then I used a company, it's called Rev. And what they did is they dictated our podcast out, and then I gave it to Kareem, and he kind of put it in literature terms. And then all I had to do was revamp it. I had to kind of like really hone it into me. Add some stories in there. And then I hired it. Then when we got almost way to the end, then I hired a professional proofreader. She does a lot of stuff for celebrities and professional athletes that are writing books and autobiographies. So I hired her to read through it because Kareem knew me, Mike knows me. I had James help me proofread, so they all know me.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? But so this person that I hired, she doesn't know me. So I said, hey, read this, and does this make sense to you? So like because you're going to be the average person reading this that doesn't really know me. You know, like all these other guys know what I've been through.
Right. They know the story.
They know the story, you know, more than most, so they can fill in the blanks that a normal reader couldn't. So she came back and she had some some questions about things, and we filled in some more stuff, and then we got it all the way done. We proofread it, make sure you know there was any problems with grammar, punctuation, all that stuff, and then we popped it up, and then Kareem put it on Amazon, and then we published, man, and that was it. It took 9 months. It was a month over my business coach's goal to get it done by February. We basically got it done in March, so it was great. So yeah, so it's been a long run, and to really answer your story is that this book isn't here for me to make money. It's $10, man. It's nothing. You could go and find these books from anywhere from $6 to $50.
Right.
You know what I mean? This book, I made it $10 for a reason. It's $10 because I want you to read it. I want if you're thinking about being a small business owner or thinking about branching out from your regular day job into this, I want you to read this first. After every chapter, there's some lines in there to take notes.
Okay.
So that, you know, if you don't understand something or you have questions about something, put it in there. You know what I mean? And that way you can question yourself about it. It's a quick read. It's only like 110 pages. You should be able to do it. And, you know, I'm not a reader. And I read it in like 2 days.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So the average person can probably read it in 2 or 3 hours. It reads. You know what I mean? Like because you know what I mean? I'm not a reader. I do all my books in Audible. Every book that I read for me and coaching, it's all Audible stuff because I can't concentrate on reading long enough to actually read a whole book.
You on the road, brother.
Yeah,
So
well, but still, it's a concentration thing. I mean, like I can't sit and just read. It's not entertaining for me.
Gotcha.
You know, but I can listen all day. You know, I can listen to what people have to say, and and then I'll take notes. Like I write stuff on all kinds of. I mean, I got probably in my book bag. I probably has 5 notebooks. You know what I mean? I'm horrible when it comes to organization of notes, but because I'll grab a book and I start writing things down and I throw that in there too. You know what I mean, kind of thing. But the point is I want to help people that are either struggling and don't understand why you're struggling because everybody struggles. You know, I had the pleasure of having a few really good friends that own businesses that were mentors to me, and then I had the ability to have a few people that weren't good mentors that taught me lessons as well. You know, so you learn from both sides. It's not always just the successful way to teach you. Sometimes it's the people that think they're the successful and they're really not that teach you as well, because you have to grasp things in order to know what fits with you and what doesn't. And some people, this book's not going to resonate with them, but the people, I mean, I've already helped 2 or 3 people that have like sent me emails like, man, that was really awesome. You know, my dad said the same thing, or this happened to me too, and that kind of thing. So the point is, if I could just help a few people through some of the struggles that I had that maybe didn't become an entrepreneur or start a business traditionally, you know, in a traditional method.
Right.
You know, like here's some reasons, here's some answers to why you're struggling the way you're struggling. And I made it small on purpose because I didn't want this to be an overwhelming thing that somebody wouldn't read. You know what I mean? And they wouldn't get all the way through. You know, I wanted people to read all the way through so that they got all the information. You know, I could make each chapter into a book. You know what I mean? Like with stories and lessons and that kind of thing. But I wanted to put the important things down and get right to the point about it. Like here's what you need to do, here's how you have to do it, and here's why you need to do it, kind of thing. And hopefully, you know, I tell everybody you should get something out of one of the chapters that are going to help you. And you don't have to be small business or entrepreneur to learn something from this, because in your everyday life, if you work for someone, you need to learn to be a better student and a better coach, because as you go up and you're a supervisor, everybody talks about, you know, I hated that manager, or I hated because of this, that, and the other. Well, when you learn to be a better student, you're going to learn to be a better coach, you know, as well. So it's all part of that, and it might help. You know, like I'm not setting goals in my day-to-day life. Well, that's why you're not getting the shit you want. If you don't set a goal, you're not going to get it. Yeah, if you just pretend that it's going to come to you, that's bullshit. Yeah, nothing comes to you.
No,
we're not entitled to shit. you got to go out and get it. You know what I mean? And everybody that's got it is busted their ass to get it. And I'm no different. And I know 1,000 other people that have busted their hump, and some are close, some are getting there, some are in the beginning, some are, you know, transitioning. I mean, I'm 49 years old and I still don't know what I want to do yet. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, you know, I love what I do right now and I'm loving what I'm doing, but, you know, like, I don't know, maybe there's something else for me. I don't know yet, but, you know, like, this is just, you got to have, you know, these are 8 strong principles that will get you through anything in life. You know, setting goals, being a good leader, you know, perspective is huge, especially in this day and age. You know, there's a lot of people that look at stuff, and it's not that they're arguing because someone's right or wrong, it's because their perspective is different. And you have to understand that. Like, my perspective of how I see things is different than yours perspective because, you know, you're doing a state job. Right. You know what I mean? And I'm a business owner. Right. So I have different problems than you do. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you have different problems than I do. Yep. You know what I mean? So our perspective on how sometimes we see things is different. But being a good leader means you're going to listen. And you're going to look for how we're more similar than we are different. Right. You know what I mean? Because, hey, did you ever think about this? How about you talk to them this? You're going at it with a hammer and a nail. Maybe we come over here and, like, approach them like this about this and see how that works instead of how you're doing it right now. And then they look at you and I go, well, if you came to me like that, this is how I would react too. You know what I mean? Right. Like, but try going at it this way and from a different perspective. And now maybe you should understand why he's saying or she's saying no versus you're getting no and now you're pissed off. Like, you just not answering you're not asking the question the right way to get what you want. You know what I mean? And that's perspective. You know, you have to put it in the perspective that you're selling it to the person that you want to get at. Yes, and most people they sell it because I want it. Right. And that doesn't get you what you want. That gets you normally an obstacle because now they're like frustrated. You get frustrated because you're not getting what you want because you don't understand the other person's perspective. You don't know why they're saying no. You don't understand why they're saying no, and you know, frankly, most times don't give a shit why they're saying no. You just want what you want. Well, if you sell it in a different way with a different perspective, you'll probably get what you want. You know, because that's really, you know, sales. That's what sales is. Yes. Is me to get you to say yes, and me to get you to dig in your pocket. Well, it's no different for a boss. It's no different for a supervisor. It's no different for workers. You know, you gotta sell it to them in a way that they understand, and they most times don't understand your perspective because, you know, you're looking at it at 20,000 feet and they're looking at it on the ground. You know what I mean? And we're looking at it 2 different ways. Yeah, cool. So,
now, where can folks go find the book?
You go to Amazon.com and you just all you have to do is search Destination Success, and when you type in Destination Success, there'll be a little drop down. It says In Books. Click on that, and I should come up on right there on the first page.
Are you on any social media platforms? Can anybody follow you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Instagram, Facebook?
If you come if you find me on Facebook under Sherm Porter, under my under my About page, there's a link about all my stuff. Okay. My LinkedIn is there. My Instagram is there. How to get the book is there. If you want some coaching, there's a link there for that. There's all kinds of stuff there. My whole story is not whole story, but my little bio is sitting in there and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's just a little link that you click on and you can read everything about me.
Okay, now we're going to touch briefly because again, you're our brother, the Leaf.
Yes, sir.
Now, you have a go-to smoke, brother? What do you like to smoke?
Man, I'm probably the worst person to talk about smokes. So, like reading, smoking is the same. Like I love what I love, and I don't know what I love, but I love it. You know, God, go-to smoke.
You got one. I don't have a go-to smoke. So
yeah, I mean, you know, I like mediums.
Okay, there we go.
I'm not a huge pepper fan. Like I like a medium, kind of even body, all the way through. There's some things that every now and then get a little peppery on me, or maybe a little more body, but you know, I'm all over the place, man. I like the new Placenias. They're decent. I like them. You know what I mean?
Very decent.
Like everything else in my life, I kind of have a higher end taste.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like wrong with that, brother.
It's not on purpose. I just start smoking. I'm like, I like this. Why is it $20? Because I like it. That's why it's $20.
That's what I like.
But you know, when I'm out golfing, I'll do a tobacco because it's a lighter. You know, like it has a little bit of that chocolate coffee flavor in it, but it's a lighter smoke. It's a good smoke for the golf course because it stays lit. You don't have to be puffing on it all the time to stay lit. It's a very durable smoke. So I'll do something else, and then I'll go to that, and I'll split up because I can do 4 or 5 cigars when I'm on a course. Okay. If I do those, because they're not as medium or full, you know, kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I started out with Monte Cristo. Monte Cristo is always going to be my smoke.
Okay, but there you
I
go.
like some Cohibas.
Big worm, big perm.
Yeah, you know, I like the Cohibas.
Now, how about your pairing? What do you like to pair with your smoke?
So I just got into Scotch, man.
Really?
I've been a vodka drinker since day one. And day one was a long time ago.
We won't talk about day one.
I was a fool a long time. 30 plus years, as a matter of fact. But I just started with the Scotch, and I'm a Glenlivet 12 Reserve.
Okay.
You know, with my smoke, which is a good one. And that's, you know, honestly, that's not too high price. It's like, depending where you go, it's about $60, $70 a bottle. You go
it's
over.
Affordable.
Yeah, it's affordable. Yeah. But I tell you what, I just found. We went to Puerto Rico looking for some properties over there, and they had a Bacardi makes this. It's a 16-year cast rum, and I'm going to tell you, it's now that one's a little pricey, and you can only get it at the duty free station. But when you're there, you should try it out. You know what I mean? Like, it's a really nice, smooth. You put one cube in there and you just kind of sip it. Ooh, man, that thing is great. So that's been my kind of new go-to. My buddy his family still lives in Puerto Rico. His aunt lives there, and his mom has a house, and his uncle has a house, and his dad's still there. So he goes back quite a bit. So he grabs me a couple bottles while he's there. I got to connect. I got to connect.
You got to connect. All right. Yeah. Well, I mean, before we wrap it up, is there anything that you want to let the folks know, maybe that we didn't discuss?
Nah, man, just keep it smoky, man. Have a good time. You know, part of the last chapter in this, and I want to make sure I read it right, because, you know, I specifically is surround yourself with greatness. You know, you always got to get around good people, man, and that's really the importance of life. Make sure, you know, there's a lesson that I learned a long time ago, is that you're hanging around 5 knuckleheads. Guess who the 6th knucklehead is? You.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Try to always fill yourself and your surroundings around people that are a little bit smarter, that maybe have a little more than you do, somewhere you want to be, not somewhere where you've been.
You don't want to be the smartest person in the room.
You don't want to always be the smartest person in the room. You don't always want to be the person everybody goes to, because they're bringing you down instead of people bringing you up. So try to fill your environment and your people around good, great people, you know, so that you're always, you know, you're always trying to be better, you know, and that's all you have to do, is just try to be better one day at a time. Take one step. Everything's one step, man. There's no large leaps. You know, you jump out of the plane without a parachute. I'm going to tell you, there's going to be problems. I've done it several times. There's going to be problems. You know what I mean? Like, you know, just take one step and try to be better each day, one step at a time.
Well, brother, I appreciate you being a guest here on Smoke World. Folks, go grab the book, Destination Success, 8 Mindsets, Hacks for Every Entrepreneur. Again, you can follow me on Instagram at SmokeWorld50. Send those emails in the SmokeWorld50@gmail.com, folks. Well, there you have it, folks. Another episode of Smoke World in the books. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Go check my man's book out, Destination Success, and we will check you out on the other side. Peace.